A guy with a vivid imagination enjoyed reading books and creating his own stories during his childhood. After college, he worked in various jobs, including as a comedian, a copywriter, and in marketing. But his passion for writing never waned. He was inspired by his love for fantasy and adventure stories to create his own world. Today, many of us know him as an individual who can easily blend imaginative plots with relatable characters. His books have been praised for their creativity, humor, and positive messages, making him a beloved author in the realm of children's literature. Personally, being an adult, I am a big fan of his book series like Five Kingdoms, Beyonders, and Fablehaven. He is none other than Brandon Mull. Hello everyone, I am Aditya Mehta and you are listening to podcast on personality development. In today's episode, like Brendan Mull, we have an author for the young hearts out there. Formerly in the education industry, now turned author, she hopes to inspire and uplift young hearts, reminding them that they are not alone in their journey. Her book, The Independents, has resonated deeply with its audience, offering them connection, laughter, and thought provoking insights into human connection. So, here we are ready to listen to her insights about being an author for the young audience between the ages of 8 to 12 and how these valuable stories and lessons can not only help young people but also the adults. Please allow me to welcome Antoinette Jones. So I'm going to get her, and in the meantime, you can listen to the intro music and also click on the follow button so that you don't miss any episodes of Personality Development Podcast. Here we go. Hello and welcome back to today's episode. I am Aditya Mehta, and today in the house on this podcast is Antoinette Jones. I'm going to call her Tony because that's her nickname, and she had told me that before in the pre-recording session. So, hello, Tony. How are you doing?
I'm wonderful, Eddie. How are you?
I am amazing. So, Tony, first thing what I would like to ask you is what I gave was an introduction, a very short
Mhm.
and crisp, okay, like an Instagram profile pic. So, everybody loves that pic, but no
Mhm.
one knows the backstory of it, right?
Mhm.
So, if you can give a brief introduction about yourself, that would be really amazing.
Absolutely. It's pretty much what you said. I was like your character you were talking about growing up. I was a big reader, but I didn't find stories that had characters that looked like or acted like the people I knew. And so going through life, I was in education, I was in administration, I spent time with kids in the classrooms, and I noticed that the kids too would talk about wanting books that were close to them or people they knew. And so I finally decided to write one.
Wow. I mean, that's really interesting, okay, because even I am into writing now, okay, because and believe me, after I started my podcast, I have been into many creative things, okay. Like I'm also, doing the voiceover things. I'm also into writing. On LinkedIn, it's been amazing to be a part of the writing community. So,
Great.
you know, this is something which I can completely relate to, and your book
Mhm.
is already creating ripples out there in the world, in the hearts of the young people out there. So, first thing, okay, how do you feel when you have published your first book? Okay, it's a different feeling completely, I know that, but I would like to know from you, how does it feel to finally publish that first book of yours, and it
Mhm.
how does it feel? That's
It
that's my
feels
first
amazing.
question.
It feels amazing. It it's one thing to have the characters in your head and on paper, but to see them in the book and to be able to share them with other people. And like you said, to get such a positive response from people who've read the book, the kids and adults alike, it feels amazing.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. Okay, Antoinette, okay, I'm going to dive deeper now into the conversation because I love to do that. Okay. So, and that's the reason I'm a podcaster, right? So, when you start writing about the young people, normally what happens is getting attention of the young people, okay, especially with the age from 8 to 12, okay, getting their attention into reading. Okay, if it is a video, the attention span is more into videos and images and many more things. But
Mhm.
getting them to read, okay, is something which is really difficult, I would say, for me. Okay, for you, you are already a master in that, I feel. So, how do you do that? Okay, what's the secret recipe of it that you grasp their attention
Mhm.
and take them to a different world? What's the secret recipe to that?
I believe it's connection. So for any child, there is a book, I believe, that will spark that interest. If they are, like you said, really into videos and you start with a graphic novel and then you move them to a book like mine that has a few illustrations, but not a lot, so that they're so absorbed into the story that when they do get to an illustration, they're excited to see it, but they don't need it to continue. So I think that just finding a book that has something in it that relates to them and that something in it that they find inspiring or comforting. So if a kid is going through something and they read a book like mine about another kid that's going through something similar, that it just makes them feel more connected to the world.
Hmm. That's really interesting. Connection is something, and connection is also there for the adults. Like, if you connect
Mm-hmm.
with someone, they will, like, you will be their best friend. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's what I love about RJs as well. Like, they do the same thing, and you are doing that with the help of your book. Now, about this independent book, okay, the independence, I would say.
Yes.
Um, what's really into it, okay, and how do you think that it helps the young hearts to actually learn some valuable lessons? So, what's this book about?
Well, the book is about Avery, and she's moved from the city to the suburbs with her parents. So she's in a new place where she doesn't know anybody, and there's no one there who loves her, which, of course, we all know is a scary thing no matter what age you are.
Right.
And then she loses her journal. So she's at a new school. She's starting junior high school, which is seventh grade for us. And that means you're no longer in elementary, you're no longer a young kid, you're right in the middle where you're starting to feel your independence. And then she is looking for friends and she finds four amazing kids who also have their own challenges. So each one of the characters in the book has a challenge, a life challenge that they're going through, but they support each other through it all and they have a good time. And they try to find this journal before she gets her heart broken because her personal story is out there and she doesn't know who has it.
Right. That's an amazing story, and honestly, I would feel there are many adults, okay, who actually get in that place. I mean, personally, when I switch my job, okay, that is a completely new place, right? And
Yep.
you have to start over, make new connections in the
Yep.
new place of work, and it's really difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And if we find such friends, okay, who are supporting each other, there is
Yes.
nothing like it. Okay,
It's
so i
nothing.
i believe it's going to be a book in my bucket list now. Okay, so I'm an adult, but I love reading books, okay,
Mm-hmm.
like fantasy books, and also the books which are written for 8 to 12 years, uh,
Okay.
because I believe I can learn a lot from it, okay, although I'm an adult. Okay, so that's the reason Brandon Mull is one of my favorite authors. Okay,
Uh-huh.
and that's the reason I thought, like, because it's about the author who is writing for 8 to 12 years, I believe Brandon Mull's story should be there right up. And of course, what a character he is, and what a character you are, okay, that you have chosen to be an author for these young people out there, and also teaching the adults at the same time how, the things do work out. Okay. Now, coming to a most crucial part, okay, like finding those kind of friends, okay, it's really important.
Yes.
Because sometimes, okay, it is really important to know that this friend is not out there to get you, okay,
Mm-hmm.
around your
Mm-hmm.
back, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you have to make sure that he's the friend I'm looking for, or she is the friend
Yes.
I'm looking for. Okay,
Yes.
sometimes these things do happen, uh, in both the places. I'm sure in United States and in India, and in many more countries, that you do find a friend, okay, you trust him or her, and later on it turns out that they stabbed you in the back. And they made fun of you, or they ragged you, okay, or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So how to identify these kinds of friends, that these are the friends I want to live with, okay, and especially for young people, okay,
Mm-hmm.
because as adults we have been little immune to these kind of friends, because we have faced those kind of things in our formative years, right?
Mm-hmm.
But for young people out there, it's really important to find that out, okay. So how can one really find those things, okay, if you can share some light on that?
Sure. And I want you to know that I have had quite a few adults who read the book who enjoyed it. So you're not the only one who likes to read middle grade. They love it. They get so into the story and so connected to the characters, and they have so many questions. So don't worry, you're not the only one. If there are plenty of us who like to read middle grade.
Wonderful.
But as far as finding a good friend, I always like to tell kids that everybody is not your friend. You have to understand that. Like, people come in different stages at different categories. Someone that you just hang out with, you look at their behavior and you say, oh, they're fun to hang out with. But does that person treat you the same no matter who's around? So if you have friends that are nice to you, but then when this other person comes around and they're not so nice to you anymore, is that your friend? Or if you know someone and you guys have a good time, and then, like you said, their behavior changed, is that person your friend? Because you want somebody to connect with who treats you the same and makes you feel nice all the time. So if it doesn't happen, then you need to go back and revisit and think, is that really your friend?
Right. That's pretty interesting. Okay. It's right there, but people don't actually see it. Okay. Right?
No, because
Because
I think people just, we grow up and we have the term friend. It's very easy. It's
uh,
it's it's very common to say, "Oh, my friend, my friend." But when you think about it, it's like, no, that person should be a little special if you want to call them a friend. You can have buddies, you can have associates that you hang out with, coworkers even, because like you said, when you start a new job, that doesn't mean that they're your friend. So just we give that term loosely, but then we put so much weight on it that when that person doesn't behave the way that we wanted them to, we get really hurt.
hmm, that's that's really amazing. Because, and you did that so perfectly, because you cannot call everyone friend, okay. Now that's a common term, and we do use it very loosely, okay.
Mhm.
And I just realized that I've been doing that for quite a long time now. I have to stop that. So that's really amazing, but I really want to ask you this, okay. Have you been in this kind of situation, okay, where you came out with this type of solution, or this type of conclusion, that we do use that term very loosely? So is there any your backstory about it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I was a kid once and I had people who I thought were my friends and who turned out not to be my friends. And even the characters in the book, when she talks about friendship and trying to find somebody new, she speaks directly to what's happening. Like, how is this person treating me? The thought process that she uses. So that's there to help kids as they're reading the book to think about, oh, let me think about some of the people I know, because like you said, when we're growing up, we have these experiences where we think someone is our friend and they might stab us in the back or tell a lie on us or something. And as an adult, you can look back and reference it and be like, they were really probably doing the best they could with that situation. Like they were in a very tough spot. They were uncomfortable. They didn't know what to do. They didn't have any tools to use. But as a kid, you're like, that is crushing. Like that just broke my heart. And I don't know how to move forward. But I had very good adults around me who were supportive in trying to teach me that someone else's behavior doesn't have to reflect on you. So for me to have a friend or someone I thought was a friend who hurt my feelings, it didn't mean that I did something bad. It just meant that that person might be going through something and that we need to give them some space and maybe put them in a different category as not friends. Because we also have to remember people make mistakes. So if they're our friend, and they make a mistake and they come back and say, you know, I made a mistake. I'm very sorry. It'll never happen again. If they've shown before that they were a good friend, then maybe we can give them a second chance.
Wow, that's really amazing. Now, I have a follow-up question to that, because you mentioned so perfectly that sometimes they are in a bad situation, and it's sometimes really, you cannot get that. Okay, because,
Right.
and as kids, I believe having that sort of empathy is, it's somewhere it is very difficult to have that. Okay,
Yeah.
honestly, because we just see what is there in front of us. Okay,
Right.
I would say even as adults, okay, sometimes we just see what is in front of us. Okay, not even
Right.
kids. Okay, how to build that sort of empathy? Okay, that is my first question. And
Mhm.
related to that, I would also like to ask, when you have that sort of empathy, okay, is that there in the book as well? Okay, like,
Mhm.
do you have any references in the book where the friends show empathy towards each other?
Mhm. I do. I have small instances in the book where friends that are getting to know each other and notice that there are differences, but they show empathy towards each other. Also, from the viewpoint of the reader, because again, like you said, we only see what's directly in front of us. But as the reader, you get to see everybody's story. So as the reader, you develop empathy for the characters who may not be behaving the best, but you understand why because you get to see the backstory. So that helps to build that in your brain as a human being, that maybe there are things going on that I can't see on the outside that are happening for that person on the inside. And so the characters, as they're interacting, you have a reaction. You're like, well, why did they do that? But then you're like, oh, but I know why. But the other characters don't know why because they can't see that. They can't hear what happened in his house yesterday. So that part helps to build that in you as a human being as the reader. But yes, those things happen in real life. We don't know what's happening behind someone else. And I always try to remember myself when I get to the point where someone is frustrating me.
Right.
And I'm like, but remember, we're all doing the best we can with what we have. So maybe that person doesn't have the tools to behave differently or act differently, but I can say that I know how it feels to be to have a bad day, to be stressed out about something. So I'm going to give that person grace and hope
Hmm.
that they find a better way to solve their problems or deal with their situation tomorrow because I would want someone to give that grace to me.
Right. I so agree to that. Okay. Because nowadays, okay, the reason why I talked about empathy, because nowadays people are living with completely different people. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Altogether, a random stranger. Okay. uh, in US and in India and in many other countries, people are sharing their rooms, are they are sharing their flats, they are sharing their apartments. Okay, and that is somewhere where you create your roomy best friends as well. Okay, but at the same time, it's really difficult to do that. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
because you see, like when you meet someone in college, when you meet someone in office, when you meet someone in a different scenario, you don't have to live with them. Okay,
Right,
you just have to uh, you know just meet them once or twice, or maybe for 8 hours, 10 hours, and that's it.
right.
Okay, but as a roommate, you have to live with them, and
Mhm.
that's really a difficult part, because both of them are, like me and one of my roommate have completely different comfort zone.
Mhm.
Okay, like one likes messy or flat, but the other one likes the more cleaned apartment.
Mhm.
Okay, so having that sort of empathy is really really important.
Mhm.
Okay, like what's other person's empathy is, or what's other person's comfort zone is. Okay,
Mhm.
and but then to get into an agreement and say that, what, you do this, you do this, and then we are all sorted out, and then
Right.
we can talk about this.
Right.
So question over here is, when someone is a complete stranger, okay,
Mhm.
when you want to form that connection with
Mhm.
someone, and that connection should be in a way that you can say to them anything, okay, and they won't mind it, okay, because you have built that sort of connection. So how can one do that? uh, and if you can give a reference from your book, because you see you are an author, okay, so I'm going to take all the reference so that readers are more curious to read your book. So I'm going to
Excellent.
do that very very
Okay.
frequently.
Okay. Well, first I would say it's very difficult in my mind to have a relationship with anybody where you could just say anything. Like
Yeah.
that is very difficult. I mean, if you think about even your relationships with family, parents, siblings, you don't just say anything. And so I'm okay with having some boundaries about what we're allowed to, the way we're allowed to speak to each other. So that way, I want to say that up front.
Yeah.
But yes, trying to get to know somebody. For me, I am a bit of a spiritual person. So first, it there's a feeling to me when I meet people. And if we just have a general conversation, I feel like there's an energy exchange between two people. And that's my first tell. So for
Mm.
me, if I feel like, oh, this person is open, they're ready to have a conversation, then we can talk about things. Like you said, I want to bring up some stuff. Now, if I get that and if I get to that person and there's like a wall there that says, no, do not enter, then I want to respect that as well. Like that's their boundary. So that might not be the person that I want to live with. That might not be a roommate choice for
Mm.
me.
Mm.
But I believe in compromise strongly. And
Mm.
so one of the things I will say is that for real compromise to happen, that everybody gets their way sometimes.
Mm.
So sometimes I get my way, sometimes you get your way, but we both have to be open to that if we're in that same situation.
Mm.
So in the book, the characters, they have to work together as a team. And
Mm.
since they are all new to working together as a team, they have to decide on certain roles, like who's going to plan this part and who's going to do that part. And so the kids are working it out together on how they're going to solve this problem and find this journal.
Right. Wonderful. I really feel I should buy your book right away. Okay, but since we are recording, I'm definitely not going to do that. But of course, I'll be doing that after this recording is completed. And listeners, I would like to say this to you, that make sure to buy her book. I'll mention the link in the description. So you are just a click away from her book. Okay, so make sure to buy that. And you can also buy my book, but that's a different episode. But make sure to buy this book, because I'm really excited to read that one now. And for all the parents out there, okay, who are listening to this episode, you see all the good reasons to make sure
Mm-hmm.
that your kid has a reading habit. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
because that is so important. Once the kid is reading, he's
Mm-hmm.
going to develop all those senses
Mm-hmm.
which an adult needs. And that's the reason it is said, whatever you learn in school, you take that as an adult as well.
Yes.
And this is the perfect example, right over here. And that's the reason I always say to you, listen to this podcast very intentionally, okay, so
Mm.
that you can get all the things out of here. And honestly, I always ask you guys to take a book and a pen to listen to this podcast, but you can always revisit the podcast and listen to it again if you miss out anything. However, coming back to Tony over here, Tony, this is really amazing, and I'm really enjoying this conversation. Although I'm really excited, but this conversation is something which I would never like to end. But this has to end somewhere, right? But so this is probably going to be my last question,
Okay.
and this question is something personal. Okay, when you create all these characters in the book, okay, now normally what I understand as an author and the people I have met, normally what they do is they develop characters from their real lives, what of
Mhm.
what they have observed. Okay, so all the characters in the book which you have developed, how did they came to your mind? Okay, was it personal life as well, or
Mhm.
it is completely fictional? So how does it happen?
For this one, each character has elements of myself and of people I know. So Avery, the main character, has a similar story to me because I lived in the city and my mom moved us out to the suburbs.
Mm.
Damien, he has some similar characters to my husband who loved military stuff growing up. So
Wow.
each one of the characters has something that connects with me or someone that is close to me, but they all presented themselves. I know it's hard for you understand this because you are also a writer, but I know it's hard for other people to understand it. But they all presented themselves to me separately. So
Mm.
the characters that came to me all came to me as separate entities, and they're like in my head as people I know. So when someone asked me, how do you write five different characters that have all these different personalities? And I was like, I promise. They came to me. They said, listen, I need my part of the story to say this. I want to make sure that this gets in there. And I said, okay, I'm just typing away and I will make sure that I represent you the best that I can.
Right. That is so amazing. So just one little follow-up question. Does
Sure.
Avery and Damien become best friends in the book? Because your husband and you, so I thought, so are they romantically involved in the future's
Well,
book, in the part two or something like that?
we never know what's going to happen in people's lives. Like these five characters have so much growing to do. They're so young. We never know what could happen in their lives.
So that's a spoiler for you people out there who are listening to this. There is going to be a part two of it. Okay.
There will definitely be a part two.
And I also tried to explore more spoilers, but she didn't give it away. So yeah, of course. So, but yeah, that's pretty amazing, and I'm looking out for that book as well. But first, I'll be reading this.
Well, you have
um,
to tell me what I definitely want to hear your review when you finish reading.
you know what? Every listener of this podcast will also give their reviews to you for sure.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Awesome.
because the listeners of this podcast are pretty active.
Oh,
Okay,
good.
because the reason why I'm saying this, because we have a community of people, a WhatsApp community, okay, where
Mhm.
people can join in and they can ask questions to the experts who come on this show. Okay,
That's awesome.
and they do give me polls, they do give me questions a lot. Okay, and I have to handpick them to ask them to the experts. So they are really active listeners, and they would definitely love to buy your book as well as give reviews to it. Okay, and I'm sure that they are going to connect with you on the social media platforms. Okay, so I'm sure they are going to do that. But and that really reminded me of one more question, which is asked by a community member. Okay,
Oh, excellent.
yeah. So the community member name is Sachi. Okay. So it's an Indian name. You might have got that. So it's an Indian name, Sachi. Okay,
Sachi.
which literally means the truth.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
So Sachi has asked this question that she wants to become a writer as well. Okay.
Mhm.
She is currently a content writer on LinkedIn. She
Mhm.
writes about different things, about positivity, about connections, about many things. And what she is asking is that if you can give her some insights to become a published author.
Absolutely. And first, let me say to I make sure I say her name right.
Sachi.
Sachi.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. I want to make sure that I congratulate her because if she's writing right now, even if it's not the book that she wants to write, then that's a big step into becoming an author because you're practicing every
Right.
day. So amazing. Great job. Um, Becoming an independent writer is what I did, but there are lots of avenues to becoming a writer. And nowadays, with the internet, it's so much information out there on how to become a writer. My advice is to research because information is power.
Yeah,
And you
that's
want to
true.
know what your competition is. You want to know in your genre what's going on right now. There are authors groups you can join that will give you lots of information. All the authors that I have met on my journey have been amazing and willing to share. So joining an authors group is also a great way to get started because they will help you miss some of the mistakes that might slow you down. So keep writing, join an authors group, and do your research to find out what's happening in your genre so that you're up to date with what's going on.
That's a wonderful advice. Sachi, I hope you have got your answer. If not, you can always get to her on LinkedIn or social media applications. She is always
Absolutely.
available. But make sure to mention that you have heard her on Personality Development Podcast. Okay, so, and this is to all the listeners out there. If you want to reach her, you first have to mention that you have listened to her on Personality Development Podcast to get the first reply. Okay, so make sure to
Yes.
do that. Sorry, Tony, I did that voluntarily. I didn't ask you, but I believe that it's fine.
That is fine. I'm happy to be part of your community. I love the messages that you send out, and I told you I enjoy your stories that you write. So I'm happy to be part of your community.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much. And all the people out there, if you are not the part of the community yet, you are just a link away from doing that. Okay. So you can ask questions directly to the experts of this podcast. So, what are you waiting for? If you haven't already, click on that WhatsApp link and join the community. You are a family member. So don't be out of the community. Join the community right away. That brings to my last question. And this would be the last question, I promise, Tony. And if people wants to search you on internet, how can
Yes,
they find you?
absolutely. They can go to my website, AntoinetteHjones.com, and they can find everything they need and they can be a part of our community. Email me directly, even if they haven't gotten to chat with me through WhatsApp, they can chat with me directly, AntoinetteHjones.com.
Wonderful. So, listeners, all the links will be mentioned in the description. You are just a click away from her. Don't forget to follow her and give her a big thumbs up because she really added value in today's episode. And if you feel that this episode and this podcast adds value in your life, make sure to share it with your loved ones because it is going to help a lot of people and you would be the reason for that. With that being said, this is Aditya Mehta along with Antoinette Jones signing off from this episode. See you in the next one. Till then, peace